for so many more decades than you. And they're still so committed to this cause of eradicating domestic violence and sexual assault. You know, recently I was at a meeting to discuss sexual assault legislation, and I took a look around the table. And many of you are in this room. And I was struck by the number of people with whom I've worked for over a decade on these issues. The most important thing to note is that our titles may have been different. We may be working for different organizations than we were 10 years ago, but the important thing is we're still sitting around that table and trying to work through these issues. The second reason I continue to do this work is because luckily I landed at a place to work that allowed and encouraged me to do this work from my very first week on the job, almost 20 years ago. I really had no right going into court my first week in the job, but luckily I was connected with a paralegal who really knew what she was doing. She taught me what to do and how to advocate well. And as Peter mentioned, eradicating domestic violence and sexual assault was something that the firm was really committed to. Our domestic violence project was started a few years prior to my starting at the firm by two first-year associates that the firm really believed in and let them grow this project from what it was. In the mid-90s, it captured the attention of Ken Novak, who before it was popular, decided to really commit the firm and our resources in a way to focus our corporate social responsibility much before it was popular to do that on the issue of domestic violence and sexual assault. And the project then grew under the leadership of attorneys like Daria Newenhouse and Mackenzie Webster. And it was nurtured from firm leadership like Bob Copio and Andy Urban. And importantly, it was also nurtured by the staff at our firm, who have performed community service for decades on this issue, hosting holiday parties at Halloween and at Christmas time for children of domestic violence shelters. Growing up in this professional culture for the past 2 decades, I know what an impact a company can have on this particular issue. Whether it's allowing its attorneys to do pro bono work, or developing policies for our employees who are infected by domestic violence, or donating to domestic violence causes, like all of you have done this morning by your presence and by your charitable contributions to folks like Jane Doe. The issue is indeed all of our business. And without business support, organizations like Jane Doe and its member org agencies cannot continue to provide the critical services throughout the state and throughout the country. And last, I continue to do this work primarily because of my incredible clients who continue on every day in such a courageous way, despite the many challenges that they face. The courage of a recent client to go forward with a restraining order against her fiance. Even though terrified, she showed up in court to seek that restraining order with the imprint of her fiance's boot still visible on her face from where he kicked her to the ground a few nights before. Or the courage of a shelter executive director who said she'd rather go to jail than give up a shelter resident's records that were being subpoenaed by the court for the trial of the resident's rapist. Or the courage of a father who has lost his only daughter, a teenager, to domestic violence, who gets out of bed every day fighting for legislative change and the way we educate our children on healthy relationships so that the tragedy he experienced doesn't happen again to another family. So that's why I continue to do this work, and I'm humbled to accept this award on their behalf.